Jerome here from LivingLifeLite.com. I'm an holistic health practitioner and I help you change your mindset, lose weight, and live the life of your deepest desires. Today, let's talk about the top 6 pros and cons of intermittent fasting. Almost 3 years now, I have been practicing intermittent fasting, and throughout this time, I have learned the pros and cons, along with tons of research of studies and writing articles. So I've definitely have gathered a great overview of how fasting has impacted my life and others that I've talked to in the past and present. So in this video, we'll go over the top 6 pros and cons of fasting. So if you're thinking about fasting, you can make a better informed choice on how to proceed. So let's start with the pros. The first pro of fasting that I found, and a lot of people before and after me have found, is that weight loss is extremely easy to achieve. Typically in the first few weeks of fasting, you'll definitely drop weight, whether that be 5 or 10 pounds, a lot of it's water weight, but this is the period when your body is adjusting to your new way of being in the world. A lot of the times we are unconsciously eating too many calories, and when we start a fasting protocol, we automatically reduce our caloric intake. That is best accomplished by simply skipping breakfast each day. This is commonly known as the 16-8 fasting protocol. Essentially, you fast for 16 hours per day and you have an 8-hour eating window. The 16-8 protocol is the best way to start fasting. I would recommend this to anyone who wants to lose weight and wants to lose it for the long term. Second pro of fasting I found is that you gain more time. If you're used to planning 3 to 6 healthy meals a day, and all of a sudden you only have to plan 1 or 2, that is a huge difference, and that frees up a lot of time in your life. You can replace activity of meal planning and prepping and eating with other activities like long walks in the park, or a meditation practice, or spending more time with loved ones. Your options are unlimited. So fasting creates more time into your life to do the things that you love doing. The third pro of fasting is that it promotes a longer, healthier life. I cannot stress this enough. I seriously have not had a cold since I started fasting, and I wake up each day filled with energy for the most part. Occasionally I will suffer from allergies, but that is about it. Fasting has changed my life health-wise, and I'm sure that it can do the same for you. There have been so many studies done highlighting this fact as well. Fasting strengthens your immune system. It reduces your risk of type 2 diabetes because your insulin levels are more stable during the day. You're more sensitive to insulin. You also are less prone to metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome includes heart disease, high blood pressure, and obesity. These common risks that you have in your life are severely mitigated when you start a fasting protocol. Now let's talk about the cons of intermittent fasting. One of the biggest cons that I found is that the first few weeks to a month are the hardest. I remember when I first started fasting, I was really scared of even starting. It took me months and months to even do my first fast. At night, I would scour over a blog post and any kind of articles that I could get my hands on. And to be honest, there wasn't really a lot of information out there, but eventually I got myself to a point where I was ready to start. I'll never forget that first day of fasting. I was completely worried that I wouldn't be able to fulfill the 14 and 16 hours that I set out to do. Fortunately for me, it wasn't that big of a deal. I simply delayed my first meal and I was able to eat a little bit later in the day. But this may not be the case for everyone. Fasting can be a huge adjustment to your body. And to ease into this adjustment period, it's best that you stop fasting if you're feeling very faint or sluggish and pick it up the next day. It definitely isn't the end of the world. Embrace a marathon mentality. you're going to be fasting for a long time, perhaps even the rest of your life. This will reduce your rate of failure as time goes on, and you'll be able to stick with fasting for the long term. The second con of fasting is that when you break your fast, especially in the beginning, you're going to be tempted to overeat. In fact, that probably is going to happen a few times, and that is completely okay. You're getting used to not eating for long periods of time, and then when you're able to eat, you might just want to go crazy. I have some tips that I've definitely found that's helped me break my fast and not overeat. The first one is to drink water. Have a nice big glass of water before you start eating. This is going to definitely help you not overeat. Also, start with your vegetables and proteins first. Save your carbs for last. This way you won't have the tendency to binge on carbs as much. The third con of fasting is that you can go overboard with fasting, especially once you get into the groove of fasting. It becomes super easy and your body gets used to not having that excess amount of calories. So it's actually easier to go under your calories than over your calories in this sense. I remember a few years ago, maybe a year or two ago, I was going overboard with fasting. I was working out a lot, but I wasn't eating enough calories because my diet was pretty healthy. I was eating a lot of minimally processed whole foods that were low in sugar, so my calories each day weren't enough to support my physical activities. And then I found myself being really super cold all the time. I was tired, I wanted to sleep, and I just felt sluggish. So if you get into the flow of fasting and you find yourself not wanting to eat, or you catch yourself not eating enough, beware of that. Take a few days off of fasting, refuel your body, replenish it with wholesome foods that are going to support you. So there you have it, the top 6 pros and cons of intermittent fasting. I also have a Stop Hunger While Fasting guide below. It gives you 5 tips that you can implement in your life to combat hunger. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe bell. I'll talk to you in the next video.